Workflow automation tools like Zapier, Make, or N8N seem to offer endless possibilities for building processes across multiple apps. You have ready-to-use nodes and you can connect them with ease. So it's just about connecting the dots. But is it really that simple? To connect apps, we rely on good interfaces, but often we face a lack of transparency as companies tend to limit their APIs. I guess you know what I'm talking about. No offense, I really like their products. But what about these guys? Don't they usually follow a community-driven approach? Well, let me tell you a quick story. My goal was to have my tasks and events across different workspaces and providers all in one place. Discovering Google's native task integration in their calendar made my choice pretty straightforward. I checked if both calendar and tasks had an API endpoint, and they did. Same for the other providers. Immediately I started building a proof of concept for a bidirectional synchronization between the different providers. Everything worked pretty well until I tried to set not only a date but also a time value for a task. It just didn't appear in the Google Calendar. Upon deeper inspection of Google's API documentation, I realized that the time property, and only the time property, was read-only. Just why? This example shows how one small detail, something we might take for granted, can at least partially obstruct our goals. In fact, there are many different obstacles we face when connecting apps to each other. And since building new individual apps from scratch is a whole other dimension, we must navigate these limitations and stay aware of them. So let's walk through 3 key steps for building solid workflows. Each app has its own strengths and limitations, so we need to find the ones that best fit our specific use cases. Most apps are typically designed for one specific purpose. While they may excel in multiple areas, they are truly outstanding at one particular functionality they focus on. Are you aiming to manage customer relations, or do you want to create a custom database easily accessible by others? Do you want to establish communication channels, or are you looking into targeted collaboration? To maximize productivity, it often makes sense to distribute a large process across multiple applications. Also, please stop trying to use one app for everything. This typically results in a poor user experience, which brings us to the next point. Use each application in the intended way and encourage an intuitive use. Misusing properties or functions can lead to bigger issues in the future. This also applies for entire entities. For example, using a project with tasks to create knowledge base is a bad practice. Instead, use a proper wiki that focuses on pages. Now let's dive into the technical side. To interconnect apps, we heavily rely on good APIs. So it's essential to read the documentation thoroughly and run some tests first. Are webhooks available? How reliable are they? Are all necessary attributes supported? What about write permissions? Also check on rate limits. They impact the benefit-cost ratio. Furthermore, they affect the user experience. For instance, if you can only synchronize tasks between apps every hour, it might disrupt your ability to stay organized and maintain an overview. What if you already own a system, but it has limited or no API capabilities? Well, you could reverse engineer unofficial APIs by analyzing HTTP requests running in the background. It surely enables possibilities, but is it a reliable option? Especially with cloud applications, there is no guarantee it will work the same the next day. Instead, consider spending time on finding a replacement for the tool. It may be a long-time investment, but it could prove beneficial. What about hosting? Is the application cloud-based? If so, as mentioned earlier, beware of changes overnight. You have no control. Does the app have a tiny user base? Then there might be a chance that it could disappear someday soon. If the application is self-hosted, check if it is on the same network as other apps you use, or if it is behind a firewall requiring a gateway. It is also important to keep in mind the regular maintenance which is required when self-hosting. Next up, we need a suitable platform which we can use to build the process logic. I guess we all agree that we do not rely on conventional programming since we are focused on connecting the dots, not creating them. Simple processes can be implemented using no-code platforms. Some apps like Asana, Airtable, Cal.com also have integrations and automation capabilities built in, yet they are quite limited. Low-code, on the other hand, gives us an extra layer of flexibility. N8N, Make, or Pipedream, just to name a few. We have the comfort of using predefined blocks, but also have the ability to break out of their limitations and implement custom functionalities. Which brings us to the next aspect. Are we looking forward to send an email notification based on a specific trigger, or do we seek for bidirectional synchronization, which is the supreme discipline, by the way? Maybe we additionally want to cache some data for better performance, or we are looking into adding AI capabilities. It is desirable to have a system which is feature-rich, but still relatively easy to use. Also keep in mind that your workflows might be updated and increased in functionality over time. Many platforms claim numerous built-in integrations, but what about their quality? Do they offer all necessary predefined API endpoints, or just a few ones which require you to define many HTTP requests yourself? Unlike app subscriptions, complex or frequently executed workflows can quickly become very expensive. Check whether you pay per execution or per step, and consider the cost during development and testing as well. On this occasion, you might be looking for a platform you can self-host. Once we have chosen suitable applications, we can design our workflows. Clean processes are a long-time investment. It makes them easier to maintain and understandable for others. Keep it simple. Break down complex processes into multiple sub-workflows. By the way, low-code tools make it easier to show non-technical people how the magic works behind the curtains. It no longer feels like a black box. A good user experience requires fast and smooth interactions. The handling should be intuitive, not to say as seamless as possible. The user should not have to care what he is allowed to input or not, when to expect a button to work and when not to. Instead, the system itself should limit or even prohibit unwanted behavior. Our attention might be one of the most valuable assets. Constantly losing focus by switching between apps is a huge waste of time. Superior workflows tackle this issue by minimizing distractions. Already, redirection to the web browser for initiating an external action can have a meaningful impact. In this case, it might be more advisable to use a select property which represents the status of the action. To keep our data clean and consistent, we want to avoid redundancy and maintain relations between different entities, especially in complex scenarios. Normalization is the key word. However, it won't be possible all the time. Some applications have to share the same context, like a customer base, but they have no capabilities to define an external data source for that. This is where synchronization comes in. It enables interaction with the same set of data across multiple systems without manually copying or updating. So with this approach, we not only want to minimize human error, but again shape the process as seamless as possible. A solid approach is to designate one primary system where changes are made, while secondary systems have read-only access to automatically mirrored data. Bidirectional synchronization removes these boundaries, but it requires special care so that simultaneous changes on both ends do not lead to pure chaos. Automations run in the background. Usually we don't get to see the details. We are not in control. But that's the beauty of it. We do not have to care. It just works. So it is absolutely essential to build automations we can trust. Meaning, the process should withstand unintended behavior and allow space for human error. It also includes mechanisms to prevent error accumulation, such as flooding a customer's inbox just because someone made a typo. So all in all, Workflow automation is not just about techniques of connecting apps. It is about finding the thin path of true interoperability. That being said, I hope this video could give you some deeper insights into the complexity of interconnecting apps. Thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and just keep in mind, with workflow automation, you accepted the challenge to cultivate connectedness in a jungle of competitiveness.